We are resuming our petitioner hearings. For those of you that are joining us now, my name is Max Disposti. I'm the board chair of the Board of Behavioral Sciences. Today is Thursday, February 2nd. The time is 12:17. We're resuming under the directions of Judge Washington and to hear our next petitioner, Tabitha Lopez. Your Honor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So let's go back on the record. All right, we are back on the record and ready to hear our next petition. So I'm going to call it at this time. In the matter of the petition for early termination of probation of Tabitha Ann Lopez, also known as Tabitha Harrigan. Harrigan is Harrigan. The Office of Administrative Hearings number for this matter is 2023-010-039. The agency case number for this matter is 2002-02-000933. This matter is being heard before the Board of Behavioral Sciences. My name is Ed Washington. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and I've been assigned to hear this matter. May I take the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General, please?
Deputy Attorney General Kevin W. Bell.
Thank you. And may I have the appearance of the petitioner, Ms. Lopez, if you could state your name for the record?
Tabitha Lopez.
Okay, and again, good afternoon to you. And as I mentioned, this matter is being heard before the Board of Behavioral Sciences. We took roll earlier. It is my assumption that all members remain present. Is that the case, Chair Disposti?
Yes, correct.
Okay, excellent. Just want to make sure we still had a quorum after the break. And so, Ms. Lopez, I went through the instructions earlier, and I believe you were on the line when I provided those instructions, correct?
Yes.
Okay, do you have any questions for me at this time?
No.
Okay, then Mr. Bell, you may proceed with your background information.
Thank you, Judge. My name is Kevin W. Bell, and I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522 and Business and Professions Code Section 2878.7. My role here is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest by ensuring the board has adequate information from which to make a decision on this petition. To that end, I'll provide some background information and highlight the circumstances of the petitioner's disciplinary history. The petitioner was issued her registration on May 27, 2020, after the filing of a statement of issues and after entering into a stipulated settlement in this case. The underlying matters that resulted in this statement of issues being filed concerned a criminal proceeding in Riverside County Superior Court. The petitioner was convicted by her plea of guilty for violating two felonies: Penal Code Section 424, Subdivision A, the misappropriation of funds for her own use, and a violation of Welfare and Institutions Code Section 10980, Subdivision 1, fraudulent use of CalFresh benefits, both felonies. She had originally been charged with 9 separate counts, but 7 of the other counts were dismissed as a part of her plea agreement. She was placed on 3 years probation, conditioned on serving 170 days in custody through work release, and paying restitution of over $6,000 to the Riverside Department of Public Services, as well as court fines and fees. The underlying circumstance from the criminal case involved an investigation from when the respondent was working for the Riverside Department of Public Services. The investigation revealed that a monthly summary report for the Medi-Cal unit indicated that petitioner's work identification number was associated with several fraudulent non-Medi-Cal cases in which CalWorks and CalFresh benefits, including debit cards, were issued to various recipients. The petitioner initially denied accessing these cases and claimed that the book in which she kept her employee password had gone missing while she was in a training session in Sacramento. An audit of the fraudulent cases showed that they were approved for benefits without an assigned eligibility technician and without any verification imaged into the database. By their policy, all public assistance cases had to have an assigned eligibility technician to evaluate the applicant's verifications to determine initial eligibility of the requested benefits. Those verifications, which are used to show proof of identity, residence, income, and property, include photo identification, birth certificates, social security number cards, check stubs, and applications. In fraudulent cases, the social security numbers were from deceased persons or persons who were unaware that their social security numbers were being used for public assistance programs. The recipients' names used to open those fraudulent cases were either fictitious or pulled from other cases in the system. The investigators determined that the petitioner had set the fraudulent cases in the database and then ceased working on the cases once the CalWORKS and CalFresh benefits were issued. Additionally, her home address was listed as the payees in one of the cases in which CalWORKS benefits were issued. Investigators visited the grocery stores where the EBT cards were issued by the fraudulent cases were used to make purchases and obtain surveillance video footage and digital still photos. The footage from several grocery stores showed the petitioner making the transactions with the fraudulently issued EBT cards. In an interview, the petitioner initially denied using fraudulent cards or accessing benefits from the fraudulent cases associated to her employee's identification number. The petitioner also told the investigators she was not familiar with the names of the recipients in the cases. The investigators then informed the petitioner that they obtained surveillance photos and videos from the grocery store where the EBT cards were used and showed some of the photos they obtained to the petitioner. When she saw the photos, she admitted to accessing CalWORKS and CalFresh benefits using the associated fraudulent EBT cards. Petitioner gave the investigators one of the EBT cards bearing the name of one of the recipients of the fraudulent cases. Petitioner denied setting up and approving the cases on the database, however. But petitioner's supervisor confirmed that petitioner had attended training in Sacramento and that the fraudulent cases were created after the petitioner returned from that training. The investigators determined that petitioner was at work on the day the fraudulent cases were created and accessed from her worksite computer, and that the petitioner's employee identification number was used to create those fraudulent cases. The board adopted the stipulated settlement and disciplinary.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Bell, if I could jump in here just 1 second. You are breaking up a bit, and it seems our court reporter may be having some of the same challenges hearing you. If you could maybe go over that last statement that you just made, maybe 1 or 2 sentences, it'd be appreciated.
Sure. Yes. The petitioner gave the investigator a fraudulent EBT card bearing the name of one of the recipients from the cases. Petitioner denied setting up.
I'm sorry, this is the reporter again. You're breaking up. I think maybe some sound is coming from the actual room too.
Right. I think the sound in the boardroom is interfering with the sound for Mr. Bell. So maybe if we could mute the microphone in the boardroom briefly until Mr. Bell finishes.
Yeah, actually, our tech folks here are telling us that this time, for the first time, it's not us. It's the internet, so it has to do with the communication from, so it's nothing we were doing here. There is no background sound. So maybe what do we do though? Hold on. Is that we just have to maybe see if he can check his connection? It could
sure,
be,
we can try.
Yeah. If it comes very clear to us without any issue whatsoever.
So you're not having any breakup at all?
Nope.
Okay.
Not at all.
Because it seems, yes, Ms. Curter?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, because it seems like there's interference coming from the boardroom whenever I don't know what you call it, but whenever the picture lights up as if there's sound, then Mr. Bell drops. So I don't know if it's just random noise that we're getting, but that's what it appears to be from our end.
And this is the moderator and
Hold on. I'm trying to, what would you suggest? Oh, if we are suggested if we can add the closed captures on the video, so in case there are any issues so that she can actually. Oh, she needs to do it. Oh, okay. Right. So she has the option to put the captures on that so they can be visible as well. Yeah. It makes sense?
I'm not sure if you're making a suggestion to the court reporter or to me or on your end.
Court reporter, sorry, the court reporter. I apologize. To the
Yeah, I
court
think she
reporter.
has to be able to clearly hear what everyone's saying is the issue.
Correct. This is the moderator. My understanding is that the closed caption is machine generated and cannot be trusted as a complete and a full record.
Right. My understanding is the closed caption is based on the sound, and if we're having sound issues, then the closed caption probably won't be any more accurate. But is there a way to possibly turn the microphone off in the boardroom temporarily? And if not, then we'll just have to work through it. But
If we turn the mic off, it's really not our tech folks repeating what they're saying. It's really not us this time. Because if we turn the mic off, you won't be able to hear us whatsoever. I mean, even, yeah.
Correct. This is the moderator. Would it be acceptable for?
You want to explain that? Because obviously I'm not the tech guy. Okay. Hold on just a second.
The issue is at home. Your internet is going down. So when he's speaking and the camera is on, it's more bandwidth, and then your system drops. So our issue, we don't have any issues here. So maybe one of you guys, one of the 3 or 4, having internet issue at home, that's when it drops. But we are listening and viewing everybody correctly.
okay, and if I haven't said it already, let's go off the record because we don't need all this on the record. Okay, so thank you for that information. And I'm no IT expert, but what gave me the impression that it was on your end was that the picture was lighting up as if there was sound coming from the boardroom whenever Mr. Bell dropped. Also, because I noticed our court reporter and I were having the same trouble at the exact same time, gave me that impression as well. I could be wrong. We can ask Mr. Bell to maybe turn his camera off for additional bandwidth and see if that helps. And if not, we'll just push through. We made it this far. It's just, it was getting pretty choppy there, and I could see we were having some trouble. So I wanted to be sure Ms. Turkhurst could hear.
We can try it again to see. Sometimes it's just a few seconds, and then we can try it again if maybe the internet comes back to you. But we are viewing everybody and listen to everybody correctly. So
Well,
it could be that side. It could be WebEx that is dropping. I
right.
cannot put
Right.
my finger in that.
Right, but the fact that you can hear him clearly gives me the impression that the source of the interference may be coming from your end, or else you would also be getting the same interference that the rest of us are getting. But why don't we just see what we can do with what we have?
We are not managing that. We are not sending the video. All the video is going into the WebEx, and WebEx send it to everyone. So we are not the main source. We are one of the sources, but we are not the main source.
Correct. This is the moderator. Cesar, would it work okay if I were to mute the boardroom while the others are speaking?
I can mute it, and I mute it when they're ready to talk. It's not a big deal, but I don't think it's going to make a solution, but I can do it from here. I have the ability to do it.
Certainly.
I think we can give it a try.
For the Deputy Attorney General, if another option would be to turn your camera off momentarily to see if that can save you some bandwidth. Those are the 2 suggestions I can think of.
It would save everybody from having to look at me. So I can try that.
I'm going to mute it right now, and then please let me know.
Okay, yeah, we're going to mute it from here now, and then we proceed and see what happens.
That sounds good to me.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go back on the record. And Mr. Bell, you may continue when ready.
Judge, I'll pick up roughly where I left off. The bottom line is that the petitioner denied setting up the fraudulent cases, but the investigation determined that the fraudulent cases were set up on days when she was at work, at her desk, accessed from her computer using her employee identification to set up the cases. The board ended up adopting the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order in this case, where the petitioner agreed to be placed on probation for a period of 5 years with certain optional standard terms and conditions. That probation would be effective on May 20th, 2020. I'm sorry, May 27th, 2020. However, her probation was tolled from May 27th, 2020 to November 2nd, 2020, as she was not employed as an associate professional clinical counselor during that time period. As to the petitioner's compliance on probation, before I get to that, how's everything working right now with audio and picture? Thank you, Judge.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Audio seems fine.
I think it had to do with the courtroom issue. So as to her compliance, the petitioner completed her initial psychological evaluation in January of 2021. The recommendation from the evaluator was that the petitioner be required to obtain a supervisor if she becomes licensed during the probationary period, as she understood that she received a clinical supervision as a registrant. The evaluator's opinion was that the petitioner was at risk for similar unlawful behavior if a lapse in clinical judgment or she's met with a stressful life circumstance, as she's failed to fully investigate the reasons for her criminal behavior and the psychological structure that enabled her to be undaunted by that criminal behavior and repeatedly lie to cover up her actions. It was recommended by the evaluator that the petitioner remain on probation with the board for a minimum of 1 year, while she underwent weekly therapy for a minimum of 1 year. As to the remaining of her conditions, she has been fully compliant. Certain ones, such as a billowing monitor, was only required if she becomes licensed during the period of probation. She has completed her law and ethics course, and all of the standard terms and conditions have been complied with. At this time, I'd like to identify and submit into evidence the exhibits that were previously provided to the board, the judge, and to the petitioner. Exhibit 1 includes the notice of hearing for today's hearing, the petition for early termination of probation and attachments, the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order and the statement of issues, and the certification of licensure history. And Judge, I would move those into evidence at this time.
Thank you. The document described by counsel has been marked as Exhibit 1 for identification, and Exhibit 1 is admitted into evidence.
Thank you, Judge. Since the burden's on the petitioner, it's now her opportunity to address the board. I may have some questions based on her testimony. Thank you, Judge.
All right, thank you very much. So, Ms. Lopez, now is your opportunity to present any evidence that you have in support of your petition or to testify with respect to that petition. Are you ready to do that now?
Yes.
Okay, and do you have any witnesses that you intend to call other than yourself?
No.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you provide today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You may lower your hand. Now that you are under oath, please state and spell both your first and last name for the record.
Tabitha, Tabitha. Lopez, Lopez.
Okay, Ms. Lopez, if you had retained an attorney, they would ask you questions to elicit whatever testimony you felt was important for your case. What I tell individuals who represent themselves, you just tell us what you want us to know, but be sure you focus on those portions of your evidence you feel are most persuasive with respect to your rehabilitation.
Okay, thank you. So as our Mr. Bell pointed out, I did make a huge mistake in judgment. And thankfully, with the help of both of my therapists, and the reason I say both of my therapists is I started with one who helped me down my journey, and then I transitioned to another who continues to take me on my journey. And that was due to some changes in my employment, where I did not know when I had applied for the position that I have now. The therapist that I was working with was actually the clinical supervisor for the company. I didn't know that until I got the second interview, which is the higher interview. So at that point, I had to change therapists. So with the help of both of my therapists, I've been able to figure out what led me down that path to follow the peer influence that had unfortunately led me to make very bad decisions, without taking into consideration the consequences of those decisions for the long term. So I have been able to recognize those things now. Before I go much further, I did want to reference the tolling thing because I know my mind and I'm going to forget. The reason my license was told, or my associate number, sorry, was told from May until November was because the line of work that I was in, I work for STRTP, formerly known as a group home. So in order for me to be able to work with the youth, I had to have an exemption from community care licensing. And that took them a little while for their guardian system to update to show that my exemption was granted, in order for me to take the position as an associate with the company I was working with. So during that time from May until I got the exemption, I did try to look for outside employment as an associate. I was not able to find that. I got a couple of opportunities, while they did not come right out and tell me that the conditions of my probation were the reason why why I was not granted, or why I was not given that employment. It was my assumption that that was the case. So I fortunately, the company I was working with did have a position they were holding for me, for when that exemption did come through, and I have been able to work in that capacity. I currently work with at-risk youth that are in the foster care system. So this entire journey from the original date of my conviction until here today has been tremendous learning opportunity and a way for me to grow, not only as a person, but as a therapist. I can better assist, or I feel I can better assist my youth in making better decisions and how to more accurately weigh risk and benefit, so to speak, when you are making a decision, looking at not so much the here and the now and the moment of the decision, but how that decision may impact tomorrow or even 2 hours later from the time that you make that decision. The journey has helped me recognize myself. I don't want to say fortunately COVID came, because by no means is that a good thing, but I feel like we could all relate that that point was a very stressful time for everyone. I know it did impact me significantly, and it put me in a position to where I had to really look at the mistake that I had made and okay, I'm in a similar financial situation, but what do I do? So at this point, I had made a decision. I had to get 2 jobs in order to be able to continue to meet the obligations from my probation, so I could continue to, work with the youth. I had to. This is a saying I got from a close friend of mine. I had to let go, let God, and realize that we don't determine the path that we're put on. Where we shouldn't question it. We're presented with challenges, and it's not for us to question those challenges, but simply to figure out how to work through them. Those challenges make us stronger, and if we're able to find the solution while staying in a righteous lane, it makes us grow. It makes us stronger as a whole. I have learned the importance of communication when I made the choices that I made, I did not communicate anything. I wasn't sharing that with my husband, letting my husband know how I was feeling about our financial situation, about the financial burdens that I was having to try to figure out how to overcome. Now I am more open to communicating with him. We are truly now a team when it comes to our financial responsibilities and our life decisions, anything that impacts our family as a whole. We are now doing that as a team. I have, outside of my probation, I have, both my husband and I have taken money management classes. I'm more vested than he is just because I do more of the financial side of it, just so I can learn how to better formulate budgets. For me, it was two-sided in taking that money management class. Part of it was for my own development, but it was also so I could be better at helping my youth who are transitioning to independent living be able to build their own budgets and be able to stay on task and on track with, if you got $20 and you have to decide if you're paying $20 for gas to go to work or $20 to, go to McDonald's, you're weighing out the benefits of, okay, well, McDonald's is only going to get you one meal versus the $20 in gas is going to get you back and forth to work, which will get you more than one meal. So that has been, I'm sorry, I'm nervous with public speaking.
It's okay. Take your time.
The journey, like I said, from beginning to end, initially when I was put on probation, I'm going to be very transparent. Initially, when I was put on probation, I felt like I was being punished a second time for the mistake that I made. Don't ever play poker, Mr. Bell. I saw the eyebrows. I did. I felt like I was being punished, but then I had to stop and take a look at it wasn't a punishment. It was an opportunity for me to continue to show that I am remorseful for what I did. I have learned from my actions for what I did. And there's always a second option besides doing what is basically illegal. I was trying to look for a more nicer term, but there really isn't. There's always another way. We don't ever have to think of the easiest way in order to fix the solution as the best way, because the easiest way is not always the best way. When opportunity is presented to you, you have to look at if the easy way is something that's going to harm you or somebody else later on just because it seems like a quick fix. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to solve the problem. You have to figure out what the source of the problem is first and then proceed to fix it. It's almost like putting a Band-Aid over a cut that goes all the way through your hand. It's not going to fix your hand. It's just going to temporarily stop it from bleeding. That's one of the things I've tried to, when I'm discussing decision making with my youth, is to let them look at, well, are we trying to just put a Band-Aid over what the problem is, or are we trying to prevent the problem from happening later on to where we're not forced to have to make that choice again, or put in a place where we have to make those decisions again. With my therapist, I've been able to really take a deep look at myself and recognize those stressful things, those triggers that had caused me to make those poor choices, and be able to truly focus on what the heart of the problem was, and then how to prevent those things from happening again. The biggest part of it was the financial stress of everything. At the time, my husband was not working, so it was my income that was covering everything. And I recently, and when I say recently, I mean within the last year, found out that part of the heart of what I was doing was also I was going to the casino, and that was where a big chunk of our money was going to. And I had to recognize that while it was a nice release valve for me, um, it was putting us more into a sinking ship. And I didn't recognize that at the time. Addiction is something that is in my family. While most of my family goes the substance route, substances were never really my thing. So my frame went more towards the gambling side of it. I have not religiously, I don't want to say religiously done that, but I have attended some gambling meetings. And when I feel that, I don't really want to call it an urge, but I don't know what else to call it, to go to the casino. I do have friends that I reach out to that have, struggled the same way. While they're not, Gamblers Anonymous or anything like that, they're not really a sponsor. They're just a good support system that reminds me, okay, well, while this may be a good thing, where are you at, financially? And reminding me to stay on track financially with all of that stuff. So that has been insightful to me, having them in my corner. The only negative side is unfortunately because of the two jobs that I work, I don't really have time to put that theory to test, as far as, well, if I do have the free time, can I stay away from the casino? Because right now I honestly don't have that free time. I don't, with my schedule the way that it is, most of my time, if I'm not working, is spent, with my family. So it has helped us to grow closer. So I can't, in full honesty, say that the problem that I had with gambling is completely gone, because I haven't had an opportunity to put that to a test. I know it has been a financial struggle with the obligations that I've had to pay. One of the things that unfortunately I wanted to present that unfortunately I was not able to provide verification of was the restitutions to Riverside County has been completely paid. However, I have not received anything in writing from them. All I have is just the little receipt that shows that I went online to their website and made the payments, but I haven't gotten anything else besides that. So I could not present anything else besides that. And then I also wanted to be transparent as well about the fact that the probationary fee that I was supposed to pay November 1st was late, but because of the financial challenges and the way my pay system worked, I was not able to get everything in on that timely manner. So it was there timely, but it did get paid, but it was paid late. I'm at a loss. I can't think of anything else. I mean, I've focused on, I've done trainings in trauma-focused CBT. It wasn't something that was part of me gaining additional knowledge. While I did, it was something for my employer. My employer had, wanted me to get that additional training in order to be more, trauma informed when dealing with our youth. So I can't say that it was something that, I had an epiphany and, oh, I want to do this. But it was very insightful and I did gain a great bit of knowledge from it. The same with play therapy. I have gotten some experience in that as well. I have also obtained a postmaster's degree in drug and alcohol counseling. So that also helps me to be able to assist some of our youth that do come to us with substance use problems. And then when appropriate, I kind of share that we make decisions sometimes because we're trying to hide from things, trying to pretend like certain things don't exist. So I feel like that being able to share that little tidbit with them helps them to recognize that I'm not just one of those grown-ups that are trying to tell them, oh, don't do drugs because it's not good for you. But more so just trying to help them recognize that we make decisions for a reason. And if we focus on what that reason is and overcome whatever that reason is, the likelihood that we're going to engage in those negative behaviors decreases every time we overcome one of those hurdles. Yeah, I don't have anything else. I'm sorry. I wish I had more.
No need to apologize. We thank you for your testimony and your time, and I will circle back to you if anything happens to come to mind during questioning. And so with that said, Mr. Bell, questions?
If before I get into questions, I just wanted to check on timing first, Judge. I know that Madam Court Reporter has been banging away at her stenographer's machine now for almost 4 hours. My questions are probably going to take more than 10 minutes. It'll go past 1 o'clock. Should we take a brief lunch break now and then come back instead of splitting up my questioning and give Madam Court Reporter a chance to rest her fingers as well?
I understand.
Or would you prefer we just keep going?
I'm flexible. I certainly want to know whether or not our court reporter could use a break, and I'd like to know what Chair Desposti thinks about taking an early lunch. So maybe I'll hear from you first, Chair Desposti.
So with all due respect, of course, if the court order needs a little break, we allow that without any problem.
Right.
For the break, we would like to wait also because our food is not here and we have a lot of work to do still. So perhaps it would be, even for the sake of being concentrated on the same case, I would suggest to proceed. And if you need now 5-10 minutes break, we can do that, but we would like to close that before lunch. Is that okay?
Okay. Understood. Why don't we take a 10-minute break? I have 12:55. Let's come back at 1:05 just to give just give our court reporter a break. And it sounds like Mr. Bell's going to have quite a few questions. So let's take a 10-minute break, go off the record, come back at 1:05.
Okay, Your Honor, if we are ready, we are ready to be with you. So we are resuming our public hearings portion of the Board of Behavioral Sciences. The time is 1:08 p.m. On Thursday, February 2nd, and Judge Washington is proceeding the hearing. Thank you, Judge.
All right, thank you very much. So we are back on the record in the petition filed by Tabitha Lopez. I believe just before the break, we were at the point where Deputy Attorney General Bell was going to ask questions of the petitioner. So you may proceed when ready, Mr. Bell. And Ms. Lopez, I remind you that you remain under oath.
Good afternoon, Ms. Lopez. In your testimony, you mentioned something about the importance of or the influence of peer influence on the decisions that you made. Can you expand on that a little bit? What exactly did peers influence you to do?
So when I was on that training up in Sacramento, I met somebody. We had, some conversations and whatnot. During the time that I worked for Riverside County, the CalWorks portion, which is the cash aid, the CalFresh portion of those benefits, I never understood that portion. That wasn't any of the trainings that I ever received. My primary function was in Medi-Cal and how to process the benefits for Medi-Cal or Medicaid, as commonly known. So I didn't know that other side of the coin. So while I was up there, I was talking to a person. I don't know, I don't want to say we became friends because at the end of the day, in hindsight, it's always 2020. That person really wasn't my friend. But they were the one that planted the seed And while we were in the training up in Sacramento for how to implement the Covered California system and how the CalHERS system was going to be working and communicating with the Riverside system, while we were in that training, that person showed me all of the different steps. And basically, at that time, what she was presenting to me was an easy out for the situation that I was in, how I could get caught up on my bills, how I could, wipe the slate clean, I could be fresh and, all that stuff. And it sounded like the golden key I was looking for at the time.
So she taught you how to steal.
I'm sorry?
She taught you how to steal.
Basically, yes.
Was this individual, did they work for a state or local agency?
Everyone that was there did. So she, I cannot remember because it was some time ago. We had representatives there from Orange County, LA County, San Bernardino County. I feel like San Diego County as well, but it was some time ago, so I don't remember. I know when I was talking to the lead investigator person, I did give them that information. What they did with it after that, I don't know. They never revealed any of that to me, as far as who the person was and the county that they worked for.
Sure. But, well, you knew who the person was because you met that person, you interacted with them, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So this wasn't a stranger.
No.
And this individual, did they teach you how to open up the fraudulent accounts?
Yes.
Had that individual shared with you information about how much money they made from opening up fraudulent accounts?
No, she did not. She just told me that she was able to solve her problems when they came up. So, like I
That's
said,
easy. It's easy money, right?
that's what it seemed like at the time. Yes, it seemed like an easy fix for the problem I was in at the time.
Did the thought ever occur to you that this sounds like it's illegal and is a crime?
Yes and no. Yes, morally, I knew it was wrong and it wasn't something that I should have done. But the way that it was explained to me was the only person that it was really going to be hurting was going to be the financial system. And at that time, I was kind of like, I don't want to use the word blaming, but that's almost what it was. It was the financial system's fault for the hole that I was in, all the bills that were coming in. I wasn't at that time ready to accept accountability for my part in that. I was just looking to blame other people for it.
Sure, because it wasn't your fault.
That's how I saw it, yes.
Right. One thing that I noticed during your testimony was a lot of times, actually all but once, you kept referencing the poor decision, the mistake in the singular. Only one time did you refer to it in the plural as decisions. But the truth is that what you did here involved a lot of poor decisions and a lot of mistakes, didn't it?
Because there were multiple things that were open and it was a chain reaction, yes.
Every time you used a deceased person's social security number to open a case, every time, that was a different poor decision and a different mistake and a different criminal act, wasn't it?
Yes. At the numbers that were used, if I could, the numbers that
Hold on just a sec. Thanks. Just answer the questions. Each time you either used a fictitious made up name or somebody else's name in opening that case, each time that was a poor decision and mistake and a criminal act, wasn't it?
yes, it was.
And each time you received and used some of those fraudulently obtained benefits, each time that was a poor decision and a mistake and a criminal act.
Yes.
So is it fair to say that you were making during that time period lots of poor decisions and lots of mistakes, not just one?
Yes, based on your point of view, yes. Because that when the cases
Well,
that
let me ask you this. What is your point of view? I'm very interested to find out what your point of view on this is.
so there was a total of 2 cases that were created, but there were multiple people on the case. So because there was multiple people, that's what caused the multiple charges, even though there was only 2 cases.
So do you see this as just 2 different bad acts or a series of bad acts involving multiple fictitious individuals?
It's a series of bad acts. While it affected multiple fictitious people, even though there was only 2 cases. It was a I guess a building effect is what you could call it. It was multiple people that were affected by my choice at that time.
Multiple people and not just the system, correct?
Correct.
Now, one thing that you said that was interesting was that you were trying to figure out how to make sure these things don't happen again. Isn't true that the easiest way to do that is just don't break the law, don't commit a fraudulent act? Isn't that the most effective way to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Yes and no. And the reason I say that is because, yes, while doing an illegal act is never the route to take, if you're looking at the various steps that led up to that decision, if you prevent those steps before it gets to that point, or you can even identify those areas before it gets to that point, then you're never faced with that choice of having to do something illegal or legal, as long as you're doing what should be done to begin with.
And just for clarification, are the steps that you're referring to the opening a fraudulent account, entering a dead person's social security number, coming up with a fictitious name, putting down your address to receive the funds? Those the steps we're talking about that you shouldn't undertake?
That's some of them, yes.
You know, one interesting thing that you notice I reacted to, and of course I never like when people point out my reactions, because you're right, horrible poker player. But you said that you felt like you were being punished a second time by being placed on probation by the board. You didn't have to accept that probation grant, did you? You didn't
No,
have
I
to
did not.
enter into that stipulated settlement.
No, I
Could have-
didn't.
You could have tried to dispute those charges at a hearing, couldn't you?
Yes.
You could have tried to prove that you didn't actually open those fraudulent accounts or take that money from the government.
Your Honor, this is Board Chair Disposti. May I just interrupt for a second?
Yes?
I might be wrong, but I have a concern that we are really litigating a case that was already judged prior, and it doesn't seem to be pertinent to what we're doing here today. So I apologize. I don't mean to, but I'm feeling very uncomfortable by going back to certain assertion of a crime has already been processed. So for our stance as a Board of Behavioral Science, we're looking at the recovery process. We're looking about what's going on with the actual today, not reassuming something that's already been processed previously. So I'm really feeling uncomfortable about the questioning and the directions where it's going. So if we could perhaps adjust that, I would really, really appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah, can I provide some
Stand by, counsel.
Oh,
So, okay, your concerns are noted for the record. I understand what they are. Mr. Bell, I'll leave it to you to adjust your questioning appropriately to ensure that the board is receiving the information that it needs. To your credit, though, my sense is these are a lot of things that she just testified to this morning, but I understand the board's concerns, so please proceed with those concerns in mind.
I appreciate
And you
that.
can add anything that you choose to.
Yes, I appreciate that, Judge. And just to clarify, each of the questions that I've asked were prompted by her testimony here today. I would not want to relitigate the case over again. There's a lot in that case that we could go into if I were to try to relitigate it, but that's not my intent. Just for clarification, I was only addressing her testimony here today, and also to show how where she's come from since then, whether or not she has an understanding as to the underlying offense, whether or not she appreciates the gravity of her actions, and whether or not there's a chance that, she could reoffend. The board's primary concern is public safety in this case. And, this is a matter that, does involve public safety. It involves some, pretty serious allegations of fraudulent conduct, and really probing some of her testimony today in the context of what's happened before and how she's moving forward, I thought was very important. But with that, I have asked my last question. So at this point, my cross-examination is done. And if the board has any questions to ask, this is their time.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Bell. And with that said, I'll turn it over to Chair Disposti for any questions from the board. Please proceed when ready.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate that. We're here, so I'm looking on the right of my board, and just to see if there are any questions coming forward. I see Ross. Just give me a second. Thank you.
Okay, let's see here. Hi, Ms. Lopez, are you there? Can you
Yes.
hear me? Okay. Oh. Okay, so I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate your testimony. I understand your level of nerves in terms of public speaking. So just had a couple questions for you. I noticed in your packet, there's a lack of any sort of character letters from work, class certificates, letters from a therapist, friends, coworkers, so on and so forth. And I was wondering if you might be able to explain maybe why those were not there or something, along those lines.
I feel it's because I misread the instructions. When I was reading the instructions, it gave me the impression that information that I had originally provided would be provided to you. So that was the character references when I did the initial appeal for the probationary status. For my associate number, it included those character letters. I did reach out to both of my therapists, my previous therapist. However, she felt that it would be a conflict of interest since she is currently my supervisor to provide me any form of therapist letter. And then I also reached out to my current therapist to ask her, and unfortunately in her schedule, she was not able to do one. My employer from the job where I'm the therapist at, she has not yet done any kind of review for me because I just barely ended my probationary period yesterday. So I'm supposed to be having a review with her this week. And then my other employer where I am the administrator, I was also the therapist there for 2 years before I took on the administrator position. Our director, Sheila McLean, said she was going to get one to me, but I had not received it by the time I submitted the information, and I still haven't gotten it from her yet.
Okay. I think that one of my concerns is that in addition to these letters, those types of letters that I mentioned that we typically see in our packets, there seems to be no real explanation from you. I mean, typically we'll get some kind of a statement or an attachment, something in depth that kind of explains maybe reasons for the actions, steps that you've taken to kind of rehabilitate yourself, maybe plans or some sort of steps to put in place in case something, a stressor in life or a difficult event arises, and maybe ways that you might help prevent, doing these types of actions. And, I was just concerned that there seemed to be a lack of any of this in your packet. I was wondering if did you successfully complete your probation in your criminal case?
Yes, I did. The probation, initially I was on a work release program. However, I found out while I was on that work release that I'm allergic to whatever the fuzz is that's on palm tree prongs. And it caused me to have an allergic reaction. So I had to pay to go on to house arrest in order to complete the terms of those of the probationary period.
Have you attempted to either expunge or reduce any of your criminal convictions?
That's a work in progress because you have to have money in order to do that. And trying to take care of the restitution fees, my obligation to the board, as well as the funds that I pay out for the therapist and for the quarterly reports. It hasn't left me with much to be able to apply to be able to get an attorney to do that expungement part.
Okay. One other question. You mentioned some issues regarding some gambling, going to the casinos and so forth. And I was wondering if do you continue to occasionally go to a casino or participate in gambling, anything like along those lines?
No, I don't want to use the word unfortunately, but it is unfortunate because I can't accurately say that that little addiction piece is no longer a relevant part with my schedule. I leave for work at 8 o'clock in the morning and I don't get home until 10 o'clock at night. And that's typically Monday through Friday. And then Saturdays and Sundays, I work a graveyard shift. So I don't have the time available to me to do that. So I can't say in all honesty, if I was presented with an opportunity to not do it, that I wouldn't.
Okay, I understand. Well, I appreciate your testimony today. Thank you.
Hello, Ms. Lopez. My name is Kelly Renisinger, a public member. Most of my questions were addressed by Mr. Ehrlich, but I think in one of your responses you said that a letter could not be provided because your prior therapist is now one of your supervisors. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I think, and I have no further questions, but one of the things that I would be looking for is sort of a breadth of information that helps corroborate some of the testimony that you made. But I thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Hi, Ms. Lopez. This is Abigail Ortega, LCSW member, and along the lines about what you mentioned with gambling, right, that at the source was your visits to the casino. And you mentioned you attended some gambling meetings, and I now heard that your time isn't affording you, right, in your perspective, the time to get that taken care of. Are you, are one of the goals in your individual therapy around gambling? I mean, because it's not something that's just going to go away, right? What work are you doing to get to something that you identified as the source of why all of this occurred?
So one of the things that, so just very briefly, because I know the court doesn't want to spend a great deal of time on this part, but I went to the casino one day with $20 and I ended up hitting a jackpot for $20,000. So after that, wow, that's all it takes. And then before I know it, it was kind of a snowball effect and my whole check was going to the casino and I had nothing to show for it. So that kind of compounded on my bills, all that kind of stuff. talking with my therapist, I was able to actually get to the heart of why going to the casino and coming up with that money was a big thing for me. You know, that why that was in my mind at the time a good outlet and a good source for getting extra money. So that's, while it's not something that we work on a continuous basis, she does check in on me regularly and often just to identify whether or not that stressor is still a part of it. Which at the end of the day, it was a financial thing. And while I don't have the financial freedom that I would love to have one day, I now realize that in order to gain that financial freedom, it does require a lot more hard work than what I had been initially led to believe.
Mm-hmm. And how are you currently coping, right, and taking care of yourself while you're still going through these financial stressors? Because now you have 2 jobs, right? There's still some fees that you're paying, right? And it just seems like money is a big concern. And so how are you managing all that stress?
The second job was to help make those fees. That's where the second job came in. My primary job is able to allow me the opportunity to be able to pay my bills. My husband is employed, so we have that aspect covered. It's the additional fees is where the second job comes in. So because I do work a graveyard shift on Saturday and on Sunday, on Saturday is usually the day I will go and get a massage. I have my nails done. And then my husband and I will, Sundays, we typically try to go to the swap meet just to walk around and spend time with each other. Try to think of ways where I can be out and about that are not really, cost a great deal of money, and just be able to have that release.
Okay. And any like therapeutic tools that you now have that it seems like you have a support system and you're doing things to take care of yourself? Anything around like just your thoughts and impulses or behaviors, anything that you now have to disrupt any behaviors that would lead to, these type of large consequences?
I do have, tons of coping skills, but realistically, to control those impulses, I just remind myself that we can't always have the BMW if it's not in our plan. If that's not in, I'm not usually the one that tries to promote my religion onto somebody else, but that's where it's at. If it's not in God's plan for me to have that 4-bedroom, 3-bath house with a pool and a spa in the backyard, then it's not going to happen. Even I could work until my fingers bleed and it still is not going to happen if that's not in God's path. So I recognize that I have to work, but I only have to work enough to meet my current needs and be able to put a little bit away. If I can put at the end of the month, if I can actually say that I was able to save $100, I've met my goal. I'm good. I don't need anything more than that. And that's what I've had to realize, that I don't need anything more than what I already have. What I have is more than sufficient enough.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Looking to see if we have any other board member with any questions on my left. We do. Okay, I'll pass it.
Justin Huff, NFT member. Thank you for being here, Ms. Lopez. I know this is a challenging, nerve-wracking conversation to have. Some of my questions have already been addressed. I do still have some, and I don't expect you to have the packet in front of you, but on the petition, you didn't complete a question all the way, and I just want to make sure that I'm on the same page. It asks if you've ever held or any other licenses in the state of California, and you marked yes. But the follow-up question, have any of these licenses been denied, disciplined, or voluntarily surrendered? There's no answer. Can you speak to that?
I didn't know how to answer that because it said license, and my number with BBS is an associate number, not a license. So while I wanted to say yes, I had, but I didn't know how to identify the associate number as something. And then I also held a license as a security guard. That one had never been like disciplined in any way, but I didn't know how to address either one of those. So I'm sad to say I just left it blank because I didn't know how to address it.
I understand. Thank you. So besides your APCC, the only other license you've had through Department of Consumer Affairs is your security guard license. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that was never disciplined or voluntarily surrendered.
No, it expired, and I didn't renew it when it expired because I wasn't in that line of work. So I don't know if that means voluntarily surrendered or not.
Great, thank you. You said that you're now better able to assist youth. Can you elaborate a little bit on what that means?
Okay, so I work for, as I said, I work for an STRTP, which is a short-term therapeutic treatment program, formerly known as group homes. So all of our youth that come to us are at-risk youth that are in the foster care system. So they've either been removed from their homes because of abuse, any way, shape, or form, general neglect, or in the unfortunate cases because they didn't have any other family to go to and the foster cares that they were placed at were not able to address their mental health issues. So they couldn't handle their behaviors, so they come to us. So with the experience that I have gained from this journey, I feel better equipped to be able to help them with that decision-making process as far as this is the behavior that you're doing. So for example, right now, I have a youth that recently lost a parent. The youth is in the foster care system. His father recently passed away, and he has been engaging in very maladaptive behaviors as a way to deal with the internal turmoil that he's dealing with from the loss of his dad. He's not at a place in the grieving process where he's ready to identify that his emotions are what's causing him to be physically aggressive, verbally aggressive, engage in property destruction. He doesn't recognize that. So with my journey that I've been on, I feel I'm better equipped to help him recognize that while these decisions are not the best decisions that you can make at the time, your emotion, your internal turmoil, if you don't talk about it, if you don't let it out, I like to tell him it's like taking a soda pop bottle and just shaking it and shaking it and shaking it with all of the stress that you're getting from everywhere, just shaking it every time. At some point in time, that lid is just going to erupt. And when that lid erupts, something bad is going to happen, whether it be something illegal or whether it be something that you do to yourself, whatever the case may be. So you have to slowly, in order to keep that soda from popping out and spilling like a fountain, you have to slowly release it. And in order to slowly release it, you have to begin the process to discuss what you have going on, what your personal stuff is. And while you don't have to go in depth with a stranger if you're not ready to, you still have to touch base on it and kind of start to brush the dust off of the shelf. So he kind of gets it, but I know it's a process. And because I know everything in our journey is a process, it's okay to take things slow.
Great, thank you. And I want to make sure I'm summarizing this correctly. What I'm hearing is that you're better able to help them through better decision-making and focusing on internal issues. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I think that that's great. I'm struggling to square that with what you've said about your own process. You've talked about making either a bad decision or a series of bad decisions, but you also attribute that to peer influence. You talked about making payments, but they also were late. You've talked about getting more training, but also it was not at your own voluntary decision, it was your boss's. You've talked about addressing gambling, and these are not your exact words, but I don't know if that would be true if I had more free time. And so I'm hoping you can square your ongoing externalization of the problem with your ability to help these clients focus on internal issues and better decision making.
So when I say peer influence, I say peer influence because I didn't have that knowledge prior to being shown that knowledge. Had it not been presented to me the way that it was as a golden key, it may not have been anything that I ever did. I can't say for sure because I cannot predict the future. But if I didn't have that information, it's kind of, I hate to sound like a PBS commercial, but knowledge is power. If I didn't have that knowledge, I couldn't have been able to do what I did. While I'm not trying to blame the person that showed me, it truly is my fault. I didn't have to do any of it. I didn't have to follow their advice. They didn't put a gun to my head and make me come up with the random numbers I typed in, or make me come up with the random names that I give. They didn't do that. That was all me. But at the same time, had I been more aware of my environment, more aware of where I was at emotionally, I wouldn't have gone to those steps, may not have happened. I wouldn't have gone to that because I would have been more aware of myself, more aware of what I was doing, more aware of how external factors were affecting my internal decisions. So that's what I try to leave my residents with, is how outside forces can affect how you feel inside, and then in turn, how you react to things. While you cannot control what the outside world does, you can control how you respond, how you react to whatever those things are. And the most important thing to remember is that when you are deciding to react to those outside elements, you have to take into account how it's going to be not only perceived by somebody else, but whether or not what you're doing is a true reaction of what your feelings are, or if you're just doing something that you were taught somewhere down the line that you're supposed to do, and whether or not that is a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, I think that your insight of the relationship between internal factors and the environment is important to note. Tell us a little bit about how you have been improved not while on probation, but because of probation.
So I am now more aware of everything that I do. And I don't want to say just because of probation, but probation has given me a reason to be more insightful, to be more aware of everything. Not just because of the probation, but it's helped me to realize that I cannot pass on information, or I cannot teach someone something if it's not something that I truly believe. So I have to gain that knowledge, gain that insight to be able to help those. Being in this profession, if it turns out to be my calling until the day I die, then I need to have as much information as I can to help others improve before something negative happens, before something bad happens. I have to get that information. So while those trainings that I mentioned were not my idea, they weren't my idea because I didn't know about them until they were presented to me. had they not been presented to me by my employer, it would have been something I would have done on my own, but maybe not as quickly because again, it was a financial thing that limited my ability to do that, but I would have done them eventually. I do the free trainings now that PESI offers. They have those live DBT trainings and the CBT trainings. I sign up for those free trainings just so I can gain that additional knowledge. At the end of the day, I want to be able to help my residents. I don't like seeing them in the STRTP if they have someplace better they can be. If their behaviors are what are preventing them from going to that better place, I want to be the person to help them or be part of the team to help them recognize those behaviors and change those behaviors before it gets too late, before they end up making the bad choices that affect their life decisions, not just the decision in the moment.
Yeah, great, thank you. And my final question, given the relationship between environment and internal factors that you've talked about, which I think is important, and also acknowledging your growth in the duration of this probation, why are you asking to early terminate the probation with less than half of it complete?
Can I be completely transparent? Completely transparent, the financial obligation for having to make those monthly payments for the therapist and then the extra payment that I have to make for the quarterly reports, it's almost a car payment, you know? That's becoming a financial challenge for me. While I'm open to challenges, I truly am. At the end of the day, I would really love to be able to spend more time with my husband, more time with my grandkids, more time with my son, with my daughter. And with my schedule, it makes it very difficult to be able to spend that quality time and get that extra self-care where I can just be with my family and just completely decompress without feeling like I'm neglecting anyone.
Great, thank you very much. No more questions.
Hi, Ms. Lopez. Thank you very, very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Susan Friedman, and I'm a public member. I hear that you are working with at-risk foster youth. There can be no more difficult group of people probably to be working with. And you say you feel so much more well-equipped to deal with this group of people. But I'm wondering if they are aware of your past. Is that why you feel so much more well-equipped to be working with them?
My employer is aware of my probationary status and what led to my probation. My youth are aware that I am an associate practicing under a licensed person. They are also aware of my probationary status, but they are not fully aware of the terms and conditions of my probationary status.
But are they aware that you actually committed a crime at one point?
They are aware of that. Yes, they are aware that I haven't shared the full details of what took place. Most of the youth that I interact with are between the ages of 12 and 17. That's the clientele for the population that I deal with. They are aware that I did commit a criminal act. And as a result of that criminal act, I did have to, I've identified the probation that I did for the criminal charges. They're aware of the money that I have had to pay back. I have had to pay restitutions, and they're also aware that that bad decision that led to the criminal act is also caused my associate number to be on a probationary status. and that the probationary status is likely to continue until I obtain my licensure, perhaps even after I change my licensure. But they're not aware of the full details of the criminal act, only that I did commit a criminal act.
But you feel that this has been helpful in your work with them?
Yes, because I can, when I present it to them, that some of their poor decisions. So for example, I had one youth that thought that it was completely okay to AWOL every single day, go up to the liquor store and get a 5-finger discount on a jacket full of stuff and take off running. Because the store is not one of the stores where they chase after them, he was able to do this on a daily basis. So I did have to sit down with him again, and have a completely frank conversation with him and, let him know, I know I've told you this before, but I don't feel like you heard me. Excuse me. So I had to go step by step with him. The criminal act, not the charges, but the probationary status that I was on, the extent of my probationary status, the money that I had to put out for the criminal probation, the money that I had to put out to repay for what my actions did, the money that I continue to pay out for my current probation to be able to live. And that's how I identify it to him, to be able to live, to be able to pay my bills. And then I go back and I ask him each step of the way, if he was in a situation where he owned a shop and somebody did X, Y, and Z to him, how would he feel about that? How would that affect him? How would that affect his ability? And then I reverse it and I tell him, okay, now you're in my position where you have to do this. How do you come up with all of this? You don't have the ability to do anything else, because if you do another criminal act, you don't have the ability to be able to take care of your family anymore. You don't have the ability to be able to do what you're passionate about. And now you have to find a job where your passion is not in it. And if you're not passionate about your job, it doesn't make it any fun to go do it. You don't like doing it. You look at it as it's just a way to put food on the table. Most jobs where you're just looking to put food on the table are not really going to get you very far. You're gonna job hop. And if that's not what you're wanting to do, so then we focus in on what it is he wants to do and how the choices he's making now, even though he's a minor, can impact that future career, even though he's a minor, because at the end of the day, whether or not his minor record is sealed is determined by the judge when he goes to court when he turns 18. That's going to be up to the judge if he wants to seal that record. And there are certain industries where even if that record is sealed, they still have access to that information, and it makes a difference whether or not you're going to be able to get that future career that you want.
Thank you so much for that explanation.
Okay, thank you. Steve? Okay, Your Honor, we are back. There are not other questions from the board at this moment, so we're ready to proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Ms. Lopez, sometimes when people are asked questions, there are things that they may think of that they meant to testify to and may have forgotten. Are there any additional facts in support of your petition that you'd like to provide at this point?
The only thing that I forgot to mention was my weekly therapy sessions. I do attend those regularly, usually during my lunch break. So I have attended all of my sessions, and they are truly helpful. Even when, if the decision is made to grant my early termination or even a modification or whatever the case may be, attending therapy is something I intend to continue doing. Whether all honesty, it won't be weekly. I may bump it down to bi-weekly for a little while, maybe even monthly. But it is something that I will continue to do just because I still have my own stressors, and having that confidence space, non-judgmental space to be able to talk about them is very beneficial. And I enjoy it.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Bell, any additional questions that you'd like to ask at this time?
No additional questions, Judge.
All right, then I think now will be the appropriate time to hear any closing argument you'd like to prevent. Ms. Lopez, you are excused from the witness stand, so I want you to understand that you are no longer testifying, but if you'd like to make a closing argument before I take the Deputy Attorney General's comments and or recommendations, now is the time.
No, I think I'm good. Yeah, I mean, like I said, if the early termination is not something that can be granted, I understand that. You know, I mentioned way back in the beginning when I was presented with the option of having probation that I do recognize that trust is something that has to be built, and it has to be something that is shown over a long period of time. So for me to come here and say, trust me, this is never going to happen again, I don't feel like I'm in a place to do that because I haven't provided you with enough information to know that I am trustworthy enough. But my hope is that if early termination is not something that can be granted, a default of, you know, perhaps a modification is something that can be considered.
And a modification in what form?
Well, hopefully, I mean, as I said, I'm open to continuing with the therapy. So if we can, you know, do a modification to decrease the amount of time that I need to see a therapist, or the amount of sessions that I need to have. I mean, my intent, one thing that I have learned as a therapist is that we need a therapist. Therapists need a therapist. That is a key component for us. Our supervisors are not always enough. We need that, as I said, confidential, not judgmental space to be able to vent and get all of that stuff out. So we're not compressing it all.
Okay, thank you very much. Any comments or recommendations, Mr. Bell?
Yes, Judge. Members of the board, at this point, the petitioner is approximately halfway through her period of probation and has performed well on probation so far, has not been a violation of any of the terms or conditions of probation. But really what it comes down to is whether or not we can ensure that the public is adequately protected. The evaluator who conducted the psychological evaluation on the petitioner found that, and I'll quote from that, has failed to fully investigate the reasons for her behavior and the psychological structure that enabled her to be undaunted by her criminal behavior and repeatedly lie to cover up her actions. And as a result of that, the evaluator found that the petitioner was at risk for similar unlawful behavior or lapse in clinical judgment if met with stressful life circumstances. In this case, when the petitioner initially testified, she repeatedly referred to these series of criminal acts that, you know, were done with some foreplanning as a mistake, a act, you know, a bad act. And through cross-examination, she corrected that and acknowledged that no, that was a series of bad acts, that those were a series of criminal actions, not more than one. But then when certain board members were asking her questions, she went back to the singular again. It's you know, pretty clear from her statements that if left on her own, the petitioner in this case views this as just one single bad thing that happened to her. In reality, the underlying offenses were a series of bad acts. And, you know, based on that, based on the recommendation that was made during the psychological evaluation, the 5-year grant of probation will ensure adequate protection of the public. And it's exactly what the petitioner agreed to when she signed the stipulated settlement.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Bell. And with that said, that concludes the petition hearing in this matter. The case is submitted and the record is closed. And we will go off the record and await our next petition, and the board will again deliberate on this case and others later on during closed session. So we're off the record.
Thank you, Judge.
And Ms. Lopez, just for your clarification, if you weren't on the line earlier, what'll happen next is I will issue a decision for the board's approval within 30 days or less. And again, the board may approve it, they may reject it, they may modify it, but it will be upon them to finalize it within a certain amount of time thereafter. But my proposed decision will come out within 30 days or less.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is the moderator, and Ms. Lopez, I'm going to put you back into the general audience. And at that point, you will not be able to unmute at will. And as a point of information for the OPA tech in the room, Cesar, I did mute the boardroom because we were getting some noise. So you will need to click the unmute button. I've sent a request once, but we are going to move on. The next petitioner is present.
Okay, and it was my impression we were doing a lunch break now. Is that the case, or has that changed?
Your Honor, yes, we would like to break for about 30 minutes and have some lunch and then resume for our last petitioner at 2:31.
Sounds good to me.
Is that good? Okay. So we are at this point adjourned, and we'll see you at 2:31 today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. We are resuming the petition hearings. My name is Max Disposti. I'm the board chair, pronouncing him. It's February 2nd, 2:34. And our Judge Washington is presiding the hearings. Thank you for allowing us this little break, Your Honor. And thank you to the petitioners as well that remained for, excuse me, for allowing us to do so. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I hope everyone enjoyed their lunch. Before we get started, Mr. Hooper, how do you pronounce your first name, sir?
Do we have him?
We have him. Maybe his microphone is muted, but he's here.
Hassan, sir. Hassan Hooper, Judge.
Okay.
Can you hear me,
Hassan?
Judge?
Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, so if we're ready, let's go back on the record, and I'll call the next matter. All right, we are back on the record for our final petition item today. The matter is in the matter of the petition for early termination of probation of Hassan D. Hooper. Hassan is Hosson. Hooper is spelled the traditional fashion. The Office of Administrative Hearings number for this matter is 2023 010 040. The agency case number for this matter is 2002 018 00204. This matter is being heard before the Board of Behavioral Sciences. My name is Ed Washington. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and I've been assigned to hear this matter. May I have the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General, please?
Deputy Attorney General Kevin W. Bell.
All right, thank you very much. And may I have the appearance of the petitioner, if you could state your name for the record, Mr. Hooper?
My name is Hassan Hooper.
Okay, and we can barely hear you, so you're going to want to keep your voice up or move closer to your microphone or grab a headset if that helps. There we go.
Let me grab a headset. This might be an issue. Hang on, pardon me 1 second.
Sure.
Can you guys hear me now?
I can hear you. I'm not sure it's much different. You want to be sure that on your computer that the microphone is set to your, I think it's probably USB microphone rather than the computer.
What about now, Judge? Is that
Yes.
better?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. Okay.
Excellent.
Turn the other one off.
Thank you very much. And we have taken roll this morning and had a quorum of the board. If any of the board members that were here this morning are not present, would our board chair please speak up now? Or if everyone is there, you may remain silent because that will assure me that we still have a quorum. Okay, looks like we have a quorum. And Mr. Hooper, were you on the line earlier when I provided instructions as to how the hearing will proceed today?
Yes, I was, Judge.
Okay, excellent. Then I will not spend time going through that again. Do you intend to call any witnesses other than testifying yourself?
No, Judge.
Okay. Then with that said, Mr. Bell, you may begin with the background information.
Thank you, Judge. My name is Kevin W. Bell, and I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522 and Business and Professions Code Section 2878.7. My role here is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest by ensuring that the board has adequate information from which to make a decision on this petition. To that end, I'll provide some background information and highlight the circumstances of the petitioner's discipline history. The petitioner was issued licensed marriage and family therapist license number LMFT 79118 on February 19, 2014. That license was in full force and effect relevant to the charges brought against him. Now, the petitioner has 3 prior criminal convictions. One from 2001, which was a conviction for passing a completed check with intent to defraud, and 2 DUIs, driving under the influence, from September 2010 and July 2014. The latter one, ironically, the petitioner was convicted of that driving under the influence when he admittedly was celebrating receiving his licensed marriage and family therapist license. However, with a grant of probation, the petitioner has performed well. He has no violations currently. He is in compliance with his probation and has paid his cost recovery in full. This is now the 3rd petition before the board for early termination of his probation. At this time, I'd like to identify and submit in evidence the exhibits that were previously provided to the board, to the judge, and to the petitioner. Exhibit 1 includes the latest petition for early termination of probation and attachments. The 2021 decision and order from November 4th, 2021 petition hearing. The 2020 decision and order from the March 5th, 2020 petition hearing. The 2018 stipulated settlement and disciplinary order. The 2016 stipulated settlement and disciplinary order. The 2004 stipulated settlement and disciplinary order and statement of issues. The certification of licensures history, and also the notice of hearing for today's hearing. With that, I'd move those into evidence, Judge.
Thank you. The document described by counsel has been marked as Exhibit 1 and is admitted into evidence as such. You may continue.
Thank you, Judge. Since the burden's on the petitioner, it's now his opportunity to address the board. I may have some questions for the petitioner when he's done testifying.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Hooper, now is your opportunity to present your petition. Are you prepared to testify at this point?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you provide today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. Now that you are under oath, please state and spell both your first and last name for the record.
My first name is Hassan Hooper, Hosson. Last name Hooper, Hooper.
All right, thank you. And so, Mr. Hooper, if you had retained an attorney to represent you today, they would ask questions to elicit any testimony or other evidence that you felt was important to support your case. What I recommend to individuals who represent themselves is just tell us what you want us to know, but be sure that you focus on those things that are most persuasive in terms of establishing your rehabilitation and fitness for the requests that you have made. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you may proceed.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank the board for hearing my petition today. When I first came to the board, I was in total denial and did not think I had a drinking problem, but clearly I do. My petition was denied, and I was told by the board to get a sponsor and a new therapist, which was my second therapist at this time. I had a therapist before the DUI incident, but I could not keep that therapist and had to find a new therapist as part of my probation requirements. The second time I came to the board, I had concluded that I had a drinking problem and was working on my recovery through AA with my sponsor and my new therapist. My sobriety date is March 5th, 2019, and through AA, my sponsor, and in therapy, I've been able to maintain my sobriety. I've also developed a relapse prevention plan that includes a 5-step plan to help me with my sobriety. Although my petition was denied, I continue to do the work and remain in compliance with my sobriety and with my probation requirements. The board had concluded that although I was making progress, it was too early to have my probation terminated. Now I come to you a third time, hoping that my petition will be granted.
And Mr. Hooper, I'm going to jump in real quick here and just make sure I provide you with some information that you may already have, but just to be safe, I want you to understand that I know you've petitioned twice before for some form of relief or change. This is not an appeal of that petition. This is a whole new petition. What you may be doing is just providing some context in terms of the information that you plan to provide us. I just wanted you to understand this is an entirely new petition process in terms of the judge assigned to it. I'm a new judge. I'm not familiar with the facts other than seeing the documents that are in the petition. So I want to be sure that you approach it that way and be sure that you focus on where you are today and how you're going to establish rehabilitation today versus proving or disproving or complying with something from a previous hearing, if that makes any sense.
Understood, Judge.
Okay. And again, I appreciate the background information, so that may be what you're doing. I just want you to understand this is not an appeal of a prior decision. This is an entirely new hearing. You may proceed.
Thank you. Economic responsibility as well as the inability for career advancement while being on probation are a few of the reasons why that I'm requesting early termination. I have been participating in ongoing psychotherapy sessions once a week with my therapist and have been able to conclude that I have a drinking problem. So I will continue to work on my recovery from alcohol even if I'm granted termination. I will also continue to be in therapy and believe that it has helped me and will continue to help me as I move forward. I have also continued AA meetings twice a week, and I still have a sponsor and a stronger support system, which I did not have in the past. I have worked through the 12 steps and will continue to work through them as my life progresses. Most of the 12 steps tend to always reappear in my life as I am working hard to become a better person and evolve to be the best person that I can be. A few are step 4, where I made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, made a list of persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation, which I tend to do a lot of. My employer is fully aware of my DUI convictions and has been an excellent support, as well as presented the opportunity recently to advance me in my career. But I have declined to offer and feel that I cannot move forward while being on probation. That's all I have to say, Judge.
Okay. Questions from the Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Bell?
No, Judge, I have no questions.
Okay. Questions from the board at this time?
Open. Okay. I wasn't sure if we were connected or not. Okay. From the board, are there any questions? Starting from my left, Dr. Walker, if there are any questions to the petitioner at this moment. Not at this time, okay? Not yet, okay, we have a question coming up. Hold on.
Justin Huff, MST member. Thank you for being here, Mr. Hooper. Much of your packet focuses on your work in AA as as the primary sort of cluster of coping skills to improve your life. I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit more about how your work with clients has changed outside of just your personal improvement with doing AA.
Sure. Well, my work with clients has changed because now that I admit that I have a problem, I'm able to self-disclose and talk to clients about that. And also to give some information on how I was able to cope through it. So I tried to be more of a support person to the client and show empathy and understanding of this disease and alcoholism, that you can turn this thing around if you want to, because a lot of clients that I work with have a lot of despair and they're pretty hopelessness, and a lot of it stems from depression. So I tend to use myself as an example and explain to them that, hey, I understand what you're going through. I've been through this before. And some of them are quite shocked and they don't believe me until I disclose the information and run down my history, my past history, what I've done. So in regards to that, I try to just really be empathetic and do some self-disclosure and let them know that you can turn this thing around, but it's really going to take some work. That's one of the things I try to emphasize, that it's going to take some work. It took me a lot of hard work to get to this point where I'm at, and I'm trying to even strive now to be better than what I am. So I'm always trying to strive to constantly improve myself. So, I hopefully try to be a role model to some sort of degree with my clients. Recently, we're going to start working with foster kids, adolescents, which is a very, very inspiring job to do. So, going to be working with CPS clients that are in placement, in the middle of placement from foster care to group homes. I don't know if I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, you certainly did. Thank you. And I have some follow-up questions. In your opinion, no right or wrong answer, do you have to self-disclose substance abuse or alcohol use history to do meaningful good work with clients who struggle with substance abuse or alcohol use?
I don't think I have to, but I do. I do it because when clients hear that they can relate to you more, it builds better rapport and they trust you. I had one client told me that, they don't want to talk to somebody who hasn't been through what they've been through. Because I'm a firm believer of therapy and counseling. I always tell them to get into therapy as well as work on their addiction, whatever that addiction is. But most of the time I do disclose that, because when they hear that, they seem to open up and it builds a better rapport with the client, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So disclosure is an important part of your therapeutic relationship with clients.
Yes, I think so.
Tell me a little bit about what disclosing being on probation has looked like to your clients.
Well, most of the clients I work with, they're mandated as well. Some of them are for probation, some of them are CPS requirements. So they can kind of relate to the same thing. I can relate to what they're going through, because sometimes they want to give up and don't want to do it. It's like, hey, I don't want to do this. I don't have to do this. Like, you don't have to do it, but try to think of something that's going to inspire you and want to do it. For me, I want to do this because I want to be a public service to the community and help as much as I can based on my experience and my education, as well as my own personal experience with alcohol and addiction. But I think that it really helps out when you're able to empathize and understand and know where that client's coming from. It builds great rapport.
I'm glad you're talking about public safety not your exact words, but I think that you're speaking to that. My last question is, can you speak a little bit about how public safety will be maintained or improved if we end your probation early?
Well, the way that it will maintain be proved, right now, things that I've been doing for the last couple of years is kind of like my new way of life. It's kind of like a lifestyle. So I'm so used to doing it now that it will be, this is how my life is. You know, I do certain things. I'm very structured. I have a good support system. My sponsor, my therapist, my employer. I have employers that wrote a lot of letters for me while I was going through this process. I have a letter from one of the chief probation officer when this first happened. He wrote a letter for me. It may be in my file, I'm not sure, but he didn't have to write that letter for me. And then I have several letters from my supervisor at the time, who I needed supervision hours for, and she didn't have to write that letter for me. But people believed in me, and people have helped me through this process, which is I'm very grateful for. And I'm just really happy that someone can help me. And in turn, I hope that I can be able to help someone else and help someone out there that's struggling, going through these same processes that I'm going through. That's my goal.
Yeah, great. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your insights, Mr. Hooper. No more questions.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Hooper. I was on the board when we previously saw you, and just want to commend. It's clear you've done a lot of work, and a lot has changed for you since the last time we saw you. Just want to clarify a couple of things. One is,
can you identify your name for the record, please?
Oh, my apologies, Wendy Strack, public member.
Thank you.
Your sobriety date is kind of consistent with your coming off of tolling. Is that correct? So your return to probation, coming back from tolling, is your sobriety date, and that remains to this day, correct? Oh, did we lose him?
I'm not sure what happened. I do not see him. Mr. Hooper, can you hear us?
I'm right here.
Okay.
Okay. We lost you for a moment there.
Okay, can you guys hear and see me?
Yes.
Yes.
My internet connection seems to always act up in the afternoon around this time. My apologies.
Did you hear the question?
No, I think she asked me, was my sobriety date the same from coming back from being told or something like that?
Yes. Yes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then I wonder if you could share with us just a quick summary of how you see, what kind of role did probation with BBS play in your recovery, and kind of what insights did that give you about your alcohol use?
Well, it played a major role because at first I was in denial about this, and it played a major role where I had to take a second look. I had to go back. I had to learn some new techniques. I had to learn some new coping skills. I had to be honest with myself and open up about my situation and my problems that I was having at the time. So it actually helped me, to be honest, even though I think it was fair, and and it's financially it's cost me a lot, but I think it was fair, and I think I've grown and learned from this experience.
Okay, thank you. I
Can you
appreciate
guys
it.
hear me? Because it seemed like I'm breaking up. I didn't know if you heard me.
We heard you. We heard you great. Just thank you for your answer, and I think we can see that change and that honesty and transparency. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it over.
Thank you.
Okay. I can manage.
Hello, Mr. Hooper.
Yes.
You can hear me, yes?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. I was looking through your responses to your in your application. Oh, John Sobek, LMFT.
Thank you.
And in it, two of the connections to your DUI actually are interesting because you connect them to actually celebratory moments in your life. And I would be curious to know, let's say you got a huge promotion at work, you're going to move up to something you'd always dreamed about, and you're in a celebratory mode, how would you approach that differently than in the two cases in the past?
Well, the way I would approach it differently is that I wouldn't use alcohol as a celebratory reward. I think when me and you talked last time, we talked about some special donuts. And so I'm still a do not lover. I call them do not because they add your waistline. But I love donuts. So I have found different ways of celebrating stuff. Right now, I'm trying to learn Spanish. So I'm taking Spanish. I'm also taking a jujitsu class, which is really, really interesting and hard work because I'm getting thrown around a lot. But the way I would do a celebratory is not with alcohol. We learned that lesson. That was a harsh lesson. And it's cost me tens and thousands of dollars, and it's really not worth it. But I have better coping skills than I had than before. So I think I would probably, right now I'm pretty humble and satisfied with a cup of coffee.
And donuts are always good for celebration.
Yes. And you need to tell me the name of the donut. We talked about a specific donut, and I didn't get to figure out where it was at. So, if before you leave, you could tell me where that place is, so I can get those donuts.
And I love that this is on public record, and the court reporter is taking this down.
Yes, I can add here for clarification. I believe that was Voodoo Donuts in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
There's no
you.
Voodoo Donuts here, huh?
Okay. I did have one other question, and in here you do write quite extensively about your relationship with your sponsor. And you told me a lot of facts about his experience and how that's helped you. But I'd be curious just if you could go into a little more depth on how you see the relationship with your sponsor having been a part of your ongoing recovery.
Well, it's been a good relationship because, as I noted in my petition, I've been knowing my sponsor since we were in grade school, and I witnessed him go through his addiction prior to mine. So basically, just really formed a stronger bond between us because we're pretty good friends. We've known each other since we were maybe 10 or 11, and then it was so coincidentally when I went to a meeting, I seen him there, and I started talking to him, and then we were able to develop a relationship, and he's been a great support system for me. He even had me kind of being like a co-sponsor assistant to him, uh, kind of backing him up because we had some parents that are dealing with some young adolescents between 18 and 25, and they were starting to have some addiction problems with alcohol as well with opioids, and he know that I have a good background with that, so a couple of times, I've been able to kind of assist him with that with other members. So it's been a good relationship, and it's very supportive. I couldn't have done it without my sponsor.
Okay. Thank you so much, and thank you to Mr. Bell for reminding of our donut resource. That's all.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Bell. I'm gonna look that up if I'm ever in Portland.
I pay attention to the important things.
Chair, I have no questions.
Hey, can you guys tell Mr. Ross that I will be trying to get those expunged? I know he asked me that before, but if I'm granted probation, Mr. Ross, I will be definitely trying to get those expunged. So I appreciate you and asking me that and keeping that in the back of my mind, because that is one of the things I really want to work on, is getting that expunged so I can move forward. So thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Here's Max Disposti, the board chair. I don't have any further questions, so I believe we ran out of questions at the moment, so we can proceed with the hearing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So a couple of things. First of all, Mr. Hooper, I usually circle back to the petitioner or witness to see if there's anything that they may have thought of during questioning that they wanted to add. You're pretty spontaneous, so you may have done that already, but I want to be sure I check to see if there's any additional facts that you'd like to provide in support of your petition that you may have overlooked.
Thank you, Judge. I don't have anything at this time. Appreciate
Okay.
you.
Thank you. And I'll circle back to you one more time as well, Mr. Bell. Anything you may have thought of that you'd like to ask at this point? Your microphone is muted.
No, Judge.
Okay. Then with that said, Mr. Hooper, you're excused from the witness stand. It's my understanding that you don't have any other witnesses that you would like to call, correct?
That's correct, Judge.
Okay. So now is your opportunity to make any sort of closing argument that you would like to make in terms of why you believe your petition should be granted. It is optional, but I'd like to give you that opportunity. You may do so now.
I would just like to thank the board, you, Judge, District Attorney Bell, and everybody present. I would just like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to present, and I really appreciate it. And I just hope my petition be granted. I would just want to thank everybody so much for their time and effort.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Bell, any comments? I'm sorry?
Oh, yes.
We're just, yeah, that's it.
Okay. Any comments or recommendation, Mr. Bell?
I would just note for the record, I don't believe I brought this up earlier, but there were two periods that the petitioner's probation was told, from July 2016 to January 2018, and again from July 2018 through March 2019. Otherwise, the petitioner does appear to have been in compliance with his probation.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Bell?
No, Judge.
Okay. Then with that said, that concludes the petition hearing in this matter. The case is submitted and the record is closed. The board will be deliberating in closed session, but for now, we are off the record. And Mr. Hooper, we lost your video. I assume you can still hear me? Well, I'm not sure. You said you had choppy internet. We're off the record, so this is unofficial. But if you can hear me, I will be issuing a decision for the board's approval within 30 days of today.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. Appreciate you. Thank you,
Thank
guys. Thank you.
Have a good day.
I will. Thank you, guys.
Your Honor, I think we are waiting for our moderator to clear the room, for lack of a better term, so we can go in a closed session. If you need 10 minutes break, we can do so.
Yes, and I want to get the some information also from our court reporter. And I also want to find out if you believe it's necessary to have the court reporter stand by in case we need any readbacks.
No, we don't.
Okay.
We sure don't. Thank you.
Okay. So, Ms. Turkhurst, do you have the stop times and number of pages for each of the hearings?
Yes, excuse me. Yes, I do. So for Mr. Hooper, I have 26 pages, and we started at 2:36 and ended at 3:05.
Okay.
And for Tabitha Lopez, it was 57 pages. We started at 12:17 and ended at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
And for Miss Johnson, I have 40 pages. We started at 11:04 and ended at 11:58.
Okay.
And for Sylvia Soriano, 44 pages. Starting time was 9:36. Ending time was 10:43.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate your hard work today. I know we had a lot of information for you to take down, but it looks like you got it all.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have a good day.
So I'm excused, correct?
Yes, you are excused.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, before you leave us, as because we have been using the cell phone of someone else, if you don't mind to off record to share with us so that we can call you back and we can do the proceeding directly via phone with you and using the video as well, so that we don't go offline. Is that okay?
That's just fine.
Hold on. Oh, we were proposing to just stop the video and just do the teleconference if it's okay with you.
I'm sorry, you saying stop the video and just do teleconference?
Yeah, it would
Yes.
be easier, much faster, and our legal counsel is going to send you the information that you need to connect, right, Sabine? What's the email address? Oh, is your email, can I say it? We're public though. Oh, it's like the others with the name and then the extension for the AJs. Oh,
Right. But my first
Yeah.
name for my email is Eddie, E-D-D-I-E, not Ed.
okay.
But
Eddie,
everything else should be exactly the same.
everything else is the same. And with your last name attached, right?
Yes.
Perfect. We got it. We're sending you the directions to reconnect. Are we clear with that, technical folks? Okay, thank you. Sorry for the confusion. And I believe, yeah, that will, yeah, hold on for a second. I believe our DAG, our Mr. Bell, I think we are done with your presence. And so thank you so much for your help today.
Yes, I
And,
want to thank
I appreciate your note immensely.
Yeah, I want to thank the board members. I want to thank Judge Washington and the rest of the staff involved. It was a pleasure.
okay,
Thank
likewise.
you. Thank you very much,
so
Mr. Bell.
Thank you.
Okay. And I have received an email, so I will use that to connect, I assume, via teleconference?
Yes.
Okay.
You should receive, and for the public that's still tuning in with us, we are re-adjourned for tomorrow board meeting session at 9 a.m. Here in Sacramento and on the WebEx. Thank you.